these silos look right, and there's some sinewy tissue in many companies that connect these things, and that's the way the industry has grown up. But I think as we think about kind of privacy, because that's kind of what we're talking about today, it's important to also recognize that much of the privacy conversation for the past 25 years or so, basically the lifetime of the commercial internet, has really focused on the left-hand side here, on the ad placement, ad targeting piece of this. And so, when we think about privacy in writ large, it typically is those functions that tend to be the ones that are in need of risk assessment, compliance, mitigation, things to think about when you're thinking about how do I approach the consumer with the right message at the right audience, the right time, like we've always said that. Those kinds of things become in play when we're thinking about whether it's self-regulatory or it's legislation, regulation, best practice, whatever it is. They tend to focus in that area. And I think that there are two big trends in those two buckets that we don't talk about a lot, but should get more play. And the two trends are from the industry side. So I've told you sort of regulatorily and legislatively, we've sort of focused on those two buckets. But from the industry side, we've also focused on those two buckets in these two trends. One is what I like to call multi-identifier marketing. It is no longer cookies, baby. It is much more than that. And so you really do have to pay attention to that. And then the second big trend, which is continuing to emerge, is the portioning of ad dollars toward connected TVs. So we'll talk about all that more, but I did want to at least set the context that there is this kind of breakdown between those five silos.
Yeah, and I think that brings up sort of the point that I was trying to make, which is because the focus has been so heavily on, especially targeting in the last couple of years and figuring out, behavioral targeting, cross-context behavioral targeting, and all these different topics, having a broader understanding of the different areas of ad tech is really important, because if you try to vet, for example, a vendor based on concepts that are typical of a behavioral targeting vendor, but what they really do is automation, they're not going to give you the answers that you want or you're expecting, but you're also not necessarily asking the right questions. So I think having a more in-depth and more differentiated understanding of how complex the ecosystem is really important to make sure that you are completing the due diligence and you are confident in the vendors and services that you're using, but you're also asking the right questions. Because if you don't ask the right questions, it's going to be very difficult to get the right answers.